Welcome to CMO Huddles Studio, the live streaming show dedicated to inspiring B2B greatness. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. Today, we're diving into the ever-evolving world of GenAI in marketing. Not the hype, but the real-world wins, learnings, and growing pains. From campaign optimizations to strategic innovation, our guests are here to share what's actually working, what's not, and how they're preparing their teams and their companies for what's next. It's a lot. We got a lot to cover here, so we're going to get right into it. With that, let's bring on Kelly Hopping, CMO of Demandbase, and a returning guest who previously appeared on the show to discuss integrated campaign strategies and building marketing teams. Hello, Kelly. How are you and where are you today?
Hey, Drew. I'm doing great. I am in Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas, home of U of T. All right. So, I know you were an early advocate of using GenAI in marketing. Is there a particularly rewarding project that your team has initiated in the last 6 to 12 months that you can share with us?
Yeah, I mean, we've been using AI in a lot of different. We sort of started testing and then we've just expanded more and more over time. So we've been, we started as everyone kind of did in marketing around sort of content creation, right? We started using, there were all these kind of special tools like Jasper, Writer, any of those. And then you kind of had your basics of ChatGPT and Gemini, which continued to get better and better. And I think are kind of replacing some of those kind of niche functions and covering a much larger scope. So we started there. Then we started going really into the SDR world and messing with all the things related to that, whether it was web chat or it was automated campaign responses, event follow-ups, data augmentation so that we could really fill out a pretty robust profile before we reached out to customers, tracking job changes like leader, movement from company to company where our champions were going, all those kind of things. And then we worked on some things that were weaving into our own product and integrating that together, whether that was using agents to automate workflows within our product or using agents to talk to other agents from other products through the MCP. And so we've kind of run the gamut of AI across the different parts of the tech stack. And then, of course, the biggest thing also being the world of SEO and figuring out what we need to optimize there to make sure we get found in the GPT world. So, it's been a lot.
Yeah, no, and there's a lot to dive into. I want to cover a couple of things quickly and then go deeper on it. Interesting about Jasper and Writer started there, but I'm assuming now you have your own sort of brand GPTs and don't really need that tool?
Well, I mean, there's nothing against those two. We spent a lot of money and time and effort to get Jasper built up to run. It comes with 50 prepackaged workflows. It's great kind of prompt training, function training, so that it automatically sort of builds for a LinkedIn post or builds for a blog or builds for whatever kind of article you want to do. You can train it on your own brand documents. You can train it on your own capabilities. You can teach it brand voice, right? Like it listened to 20 of my podcasts and created like a Kelly.ai voice because it knows what I sound like after talking so much. So there's a lot of those things that we really trained it to do. And we're still using Jasper. It's very helpful. But what you're seeing is that ChatGPT, the original, is coming up with all of those capabilities now. And Grok is coming up with a lot of those capabilities. And Gemini is getting really smart because it's doing all that, but then connecting it to your productivity suite. So I think there's a lot of, it's a tough race on all of those guys as to who's going to win. And they're all kind of fighting for the enterprise share of market, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now, if I had the Jasper CMO, she'd say, well, yeah, that's fine. But we pull from all of the, not just one. And so, and the Claude may have an advantage at this moment. So, yeah, that is certainly a thing. But so that's one thing. Great. We got that. But let's talk about sort of SDRs in the SDR world a little bit, because I know that a number of members of our community are approaching this. Some have no longer have humans doing their outbound. They have SDRs sort of running campaigns, if you will. I'm curious how far you've taken it and what's that looking like right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that it's a fully AI replacing SDR world. Like, I think there is an absolutely a human component that needs to go, there. I don't think companies may be able to reduce, be able to say, "Hey, we can outsource more of the SDR functionality, research, follow-up, scheduling, data augmentation. We can outsource some of that to the bots, but we still need humans in the middle." So what it means probably is that I would assume, and what we're seeing is that individual SDR quotas are gonna go up because the amount of time they're having to spend on some of that repetitive stuff will go down. But I don't think that the number of SDRs will reduce that, entirely. If you raise each of their quotas, you either get more productivity or you just need less of them. But I don't think what you need is a world without SDRs. I think it's still the combination of the two. That sweet spot in the middle still requires a human touch, I believe. And we've got AI all around our SDRs before, during, after, and that human element is so critical.
Okay. So, got that. You mentioned data augmentation, for example, and I know this is a big thing. Is this something that you've developed on your own where you have sort of agents going out and finding the fact that, XYZ person is no longer at the company and moved on? Or what exactly are you doing there?
Yeah, it's a little bit of all of it. So first what we did was we used Clay to augment that data. So we brought in Clay and said, hey, kind of fill in our gaps here, track our champion movement. So meaning we're the advocates for our product out in the market. And as they change companies, can we make sure we know that, we follow them? So there's part of that. So we built some of that. We've used Clay for some of that. But Demandbase also does a lot of those things. And so I think Demandbase is catching up and can replace that workload eventually, because Demandbase has so much of its own kind of third-party data, and then you have the customer's first-party data. The combination is pretty robust. We just use Clay to kind of fill in the gaps. And that's all happens on the back end automatically, so that when it gets to the SDR and they've seen intent signals from Demandbase, then they can outbound immediately because they have the full profile.
Is there one project that you did that sort of stands out because it's like exceeded your wildest expectations?
I mean, I think the biggest thing we saw and we're now building on it, is I think the biggest thing is we replaced SDRs manning the web chat. So we have, we use Qualified on our web chat. And it's been great. We can do marketing messages, we can do intercepts, we can promote events, whatever it is through that web chat. But we have that on the website. But it used to be manned when I first got here. It was manned by SDRs. And now what it is it's been trained in such a robust way that it manages all that communication. AI does through, like I said, through the company of Qualified, and it's been tremendous. We've seen our numbers go up. We've seen the time to answer much quicker. We've seen the conversions on the site. We've seen the request for meeting scheduling go way up. And so what it's meant is, okay, well, what else can we do with Qualified? We have a lot of trust now in their product. It integrates well with our website, integrates well with Demandbase data. And so now we're extending that into the Piper AI SDR work, which helps do campaign follow-ups. It helps do meeting scheduling. It helps do a lot of things. So I think that's the big challenge if you're looking at this AI world, is there are a million AI companies, and the companies are either native AI niche case. We do this one thing, but we built it in AI from the very beginning, and it does this thing better than everybody else. We've got established companies that are trying to add AI workflows into what they already do, even if they weren't founded originally as an AI company. And then we have companies who are far enough in enterprise that they're like, oof, I'm getting too much resistance from my data team and my security team, that we've got to stay all the way from that AI world completely. And I think they're going to lose top talent. So to me, that's where we sort of are somewhere. Everybody's on that spectrum somewhere.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll come back to you, but now let's bring on John McKinney, Director of Marketing and Partnerships of Cornerstone Licensing, who is joining the show for the first time. Is that possible, John? Oh my gosh. Well, welcome. How are you and where are you?
Doing great. Just, gearing up for end of year, which apparently is like right around the corner. And I'm in Jacksonville, Florida.
Jacksonville, Florida. Okay. Is that the Jaguars? So they're down there?
Yep.
The Jaguars. All right. Well, so Anyway, welcome. You've heard what Heidi said. I'm wondering in terms of the use cases that you're doing, is there one right now that stands out as having, surprisingly good or bad results?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many that come to mind. We, being a smaller market company, we really have to stay pretty agile and experiment quite a bit in order to kind of experiment and grow our team capabilities with the small team that we have. And so, we do a lot of different things with it. But one that comes to mind that I really like is that we've set up an AI agent that watches all of our different competitors and creates bullet points for me on a weekly basis of, what are they posting about on their site? What are they posting on socials? What events are they going to? What PR are they doing? And it looks for trends over time, so we can look back at data that it's posted to me in the past. And then it suggests a couple of things that we can do moving forward to kind of counteract some of what our competitors might be doing.
Interesting. It's you could get obsessed with that.
Yes.
Right. And because if it's going to find stuff, and it's just so funny. I'm just remembering an interview I had with a CEO from a company who had been the head of marketing of that company before he became CMO, and he was obsessed with the competitors and he was not getting anywhere. So I'm wondering how you use that to sort of make sure that, okay, we're going in our own direction, right? Mm-hmm. And I guess it's a tricky part, but it's very cool that it can just deliver this. And did you have the in-house capabilities to build this agent?
Yes. Yeah. So we use relevance.ai, which was one that we found out about through CMO Huddles, which makes building AI agents super easy and connects in all the different connectors. So it's connected to LinkedIn. We use it for other things, talking about what Kelly had talked about before, that we use it for our SDR function to grow that strength. And so it has access to our CRM data and different things like that. And I actually have an AI agent through Relevance whose entire purpose is to review the AI agents I have and look for optimizations, which is very funny to me to have created, but it creates some nice suggestions on how to do that. But yes, I agree. It can get all consuming to look at the competitor stuff, and we have to remember that we want to be the market leader, right. But it's still good to see what others are doing and look for gaps where, we didn't post about something like that. That does seem to be a trend that 3 of our competitors are posting about. Why did we miss that type of thing?
Well, and also it prevents that awkward meeting with your boss who said, hey, I noticed this, one of our competitors are saying X. What are we going to do about it? Right. Right. In theory, you're ahead. I want to get into the agent thing in a little bit more, because I think there are a lot of folks that have not built these agents yet and don't quite have an understanding of what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So maybe you could take the competitive agent, for example, and just talk, like, what did it take to actually create that? Yeah,
absolutely. So we've done agents in a couple different places. In native ChatGPT, it's becoming easier and easier to build them. But relevance.ai is a great one. It walks you through it. It's wizard based, where it just asks you, what do you want to do, and then it starts to create the tools that are necessary, and then you can tweak those and make changes. But for the competitor one, I started actually in ChatGPT and said, I'm going to be creating a prompt in Relevance AI to build this agent. Here's our top 5 competitors that I wanted to go after. I want this information. What else am I missing? That's one of my favorite use cases for AI, is to identify where I might miss some gaps, and then ask me questions, relevant data. Look at who we are and who we might be missing, and then create a prompt for me that I can feed into Relevance to build that agent, and then go from there. It does make it very easy, which is nice.
And I'm just thinking, is the next step, so speaking of meta, so we've got this agent who's building this thing, is giving you the competitive thing. Is there another agent that analyzes what that information is and suggests responses and then puts it in the queue for a social campaign? I mean,
that's where we're heading. So Relevance has a AI workforce where they can talk to each other. So the fact that my AI agent can review my AI agent, like the optimization one reviews the other ones, and it reviews the output on a weekly basis and then sends me suggestions on ways to improve it. But yes, that's what we're working towards, is that once I'm really confident in some of the suggestions it's giving, and then it can send to me for approval and then get passed to our person in charge of social to post those, and can generate 3 or 4 posts for her to look at and decide whether she wants to move forward with those, or for blog posts or a PR, whatever it is.
It's so interesting, and I guess I want to make sure that within the response agent, there's brand guidelines, there's brand voice, there's history and stuff, which is what Kelly was talking about as well, right? So all that and that actually lives within the agent that Relevance has helped you build.
Absolutely, yes, yeah. So we built out the brand voice, and then what I've done is taken that and given it to ChatGPT and said, put this in a format for an AI agent to review, as opposed to just a bunch of PDFs or text, and then ask questions, as I said. But yes, it has full access to our brand voice. It understands, it looks kind of what Kelly was talking about. Instead of just looking at her podcast, it looks at every post we've ever done. It looks at all of our website, that we have all this, marketing copy that we've created in the past before AI. So the brand voice is our brand voice. And it takes that and then synthesizes it down to something that it can use on a regular basis. And then, we give it other parameters because we work in a really highly regulated industry. We give it parameters about, hey, you can't make certain claims. We're not a law firm. You can't say certain things. You have to give it the don'ts as well as the do's.
Yeah. It's interesting. In the case of the competitive one, you probably would have done that, but you would have done it manually and less frequently, right? You might have done it even on an annual basis. So that's additive as opposed to time saving, right? I mean, it's doing it very fast. But are there some use cases, like you mentioned SDRs? I'm just curious if you're where you're seeing just incredible efficiencies as a result, where you can say, this used to take our team 30 hours and now it's 2.
Yeah, so I mean, for the SDR initiative, it's actually a slightly different thing for us because Cornerstone historically has never really done any outbound.
Okay.
So we created an AI agent. I gave it certain voices to listen to, like ones that I curated a list of people that would actually be worth listening to, not just generic outbound information, and then gave it the information that you are helping us build the outbound muscle that we don't have. And so, you're going to be asked questions from salespeople who are looking to come up with campaigns. It has access to CRM data, and then it has access to like what tier of client that would be and things like that. And so instead of, to your point of what used to take 30 hours could take 2, very much so. I mean, this would have been something where we would have sat down as a whole team and said, here's all these accounts that we want to go after. Here's the different lists. And we had to come up with different campaigns between, phone calls and emails and written letters and all those different things, that now it can just spit out a potential campaign that works based off of all the information you can find online and through our CRM data.
I get the sense that you're in there right in Relevance building these agents. Am I wrong?
Yes, very true. I spent a lot of time in that both Relevance and ChatGPT. Most of my day is spent within AI, it feels like.
Amazing. And that certainly wasn't in the job description when you took it, but no. It feels like it is something that CMOs really need to do as we move forward. But anyway, we're now going to bring on, we'll be back on that topic, John. Let's bring in Brian Hankin, Chief Growth and Innovation Officer of Altium Packaging, who is joining the show for the first time. Hello, Brian, and welcome.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me, Drew.
And so how are you and where are you this fine day?
So I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, Altium, and I want to mention sort of my role and a little bit of the company, because we're coming from 3 very different companies. Altium is a packaging and recycling company. We have 70 packaging manufacturing plants around the continent. So anything you'd buy in sort of a grocery store, Costco, et cetera, we might make for the brands. We have thousands of customers ranging from the very largest CPGs down to much smaller organizations. My role is Chief Growth Officer. So I have marketing, and my background sort of grew up in marketing and innovation. I've got marketing, innovation, sustainability, strategy and business acceleration, which is EBITDA improvement, and commercial excellence. And it sounds bigger than it is. We sort of like to keep the teams pretty lean. We're a manufacturing company,
Right.
and so that's a little bit about us.
Got it. And that it's helpful. So you heard Kelly and John's use cases, and I'm just curious how where there was alignment with some of the things they're doing, but if there's an initiative that you're seeing that's really been helpful for you.
Yeah, and this is already a great use of time because I've learned so much already from Kelly and John, and want to follow up and learn more. It sounds like we're further behind. I feel like in our industry we're leading, but not in the overall grand scheme of things. But I do want to talk about how we've been using AI very effectively for about a year and a half here at Altium, and that's in sort of our campaign development. And so what used to take us about 2 weeks to develop a campaign, let's say we're targeting brand owners. We have 3 personas: brand owners, sort of marketing and management folks at you name the company and the brand. We have packaging engineers and sort of packaging technicians, and then we have procurement. We're always talking to the procurement folks. And so 3 different personas. What we did is we deployed a tool called Blaze. It's like Jasper, and there's other tools out there, and taught it everything we could about our company, our brand guidelines, our content, the decks that we've created, a lot around sustainability because that's really important in our space. More about our personas, and then use the tool to generate campaigns. And so what used to take us about a couple weeks to develop across our design team and the product team now takes us really, frankly, just minutes with the right prompting and the right editing. And the campaign is a lot more robust. We're targeting all 3 personas with customized messages that are important to them. And it's just been really, really effective for us and paying for itself, 5 to 10 times over.
So I'm curious, let's go into that deeply because I know there's lots of folks out there listening who have not done campaign development. There's obviously some setup time, some learning time. Talk about how you were able to make this transition to Blaze. And, now that you're doing it, it's great, but I'm imagining there was some experimentation that sort of validated that this was going to work for you.
Yep, great question. And the good news was for us, we like to test and learn. So we don't want to make a huge investment and then have it not work. This was a very approachable way for us to get in using a tool like Blaze AI. Enabled us to fairly efficiently get in, test it. We didn't have to enter all of our content at first. It sort of works with what you have. And so we're able to run some test campaigns, see what kind of response we're getting, in terms of open rates and click-through rates, saw that it was showing great promise and said, okay, we're gonna go more fully into this. I also assigned one person on the team as kind of the expert, the coordinator, to learn everything she could about this functionality, and she remains kind of our point person coordinating with the design folks and the product folks to get the right messaging and the right graphics, and then putting it into the AI engine to generate the campaigns and edit. So yeah, a little bit of experimentation, but it was not a heavy lift for us to get in. I mean, if there's people out there that are saying, should I, shouldn't I, or whatever, not yet there, this was a really great way to approach it, to get familiar with it, to get some results. And now we're fully using it across the board, all campaigns.
And, I could hear the sort of the lawyers and maybe even the IT people, but saying, wait a second, where's the human in the loop on this? And how do we know that copy is going to go out? Because that isn't sort of not legal or make a promise. And so where's the human part in the approval process?
Yeah, good question. So for one thing, it only draws on what we input. And so we're not going to sort of the open, ChatGPT, OpenAI universe. And that's why we want to use a proprietary tool, control the resource material. That's check number one. Check number two is we do carefully review everything that's developed, and make sure that we can stand by it. If there is any kind of question, we'll run it by our legal team, but that's rare. I think in the beginning we did that once or twice. And then we do humanize. Something is sounding too generic, then we'll further edit it, or maybe actually have a human edit it. And so it's just an efficient tool to kind of develop that. If we're developing a drip campaign, how many messages we can develop, how many messages we want to hit to each of the 3 target personas. And we sort of will review and edit as we need to. The kind of results we've seen, by the way, in just a sample campaign, click-through rates on pre-AI was around 22% among those who opened, which we thought was pretty good. But now we're seeing about 34%, so about a 54% increase in click-through rates. In terms of lead development, we've generated over time, over the probably last 18 months, about 2,000 marketing qualified leads. So not just inquiries, but leads that our marketing team said, yes, this is a legitimate lead, something that in theory we could do. Translated that into about almost 400 different proposals, and then have a total of 50 wins. We really only need, it depends on the size of the opportunity, but one medium-sized win would pay for what we're investing, or several smaller ones. So it's been really effective for us in terms of new business, new project generation.
And I really appreciate the fact that you were able to share that data, because it feels like this is essential for this longer term conversation that you're having with your CFO and others, in that this is an investment of a modest amount of time. This is the return. And I think what's also, and this is a question, but a speculation, that there's also a continuing opportunity to optimize, right? You've got this one thing that's working and performing at the 34% click-through rate, or whatever that number was. And now you have your primary one. Now you can test against it, see if you can beat that.
Right. Yes. Continually optimizing, continually getting better. And we have setbacks too, and try to learn from those as well.
And well, let's go there. What's that look like, and how can others learn from those setbacks?
Well, not everything works. Obviously, it's experimentation. I'd love to start to use AI to experiment, through A/B testing. Maybe other folks on the call have experience doing that. But we sort of will put something in the marketplace. If it's performing less well, we'll just kind of have humans think about, why, develop a hypothesis, and then focus again on what we think is working. And obviously it's an evolving marketplace, so things change outside of our control all the time.
Right. But it feels like the place we're going to get to very quickly is you have your standard campaign, and then you're constantly testing against it, right? Whether it's a persona or an offer or an image or something. And the fact that these tools can iterate so much faster than humans can, that is a place that we're going to end up. I have more questions for you, Brian, but I think we're going to go to a break, and then we'll come back and bring the whole group together. So anyway, because it's time for me to talk about CMO Huddles. Launched in 2020, CMO Huddles is the only community of flocking awesome B2B marketing leaders. And that has a logo featuring penguins. Wait, what? Well, yes, a group of these curious, adaptable, and problem-solving birds is called a huddle. Get it? CMO huddle? Okay, and the leaders in CMO Huddles are all that and more, huddling together to conquer the toughest job in the C-suite. And let's bring back Kelly, John, and Brian. And I know you guys are incredibly busy, and I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm wondering, and I'll start maybe with you, Kelly, you could share a specific example of how CMO Huddles has helped you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan. I think the main thing that you guys have done for me is connect me to people that are in similar situations. So people who are in the middle of a job change, or someone who's in the middle of trying to add AI to their mix, or someone who is getting ready for a board presentation and needs help thinking about the structure of their slides. So I've appreciated that, because you've been able to connect me with different CMOs who have gone through that.
And we appreciate the fact because we've also connected you with others who wanted to talk to you. So really,
in the reverse,
yeah, grateful for you to participate that way. And John, any thoughts to share?
Yeah, I mean, very similar to Kelly. I mean, it's been invaluable to be a part of CMO Huddles. I'm a younger leader, and so it's really nice to be a part of a community where I can bounce ideas off of people. And it just feels like a great place that no matter what my problem is, somebody's been through it before. And Drew, you and your team do a great job of kind of connecting people together to have those conversations to make them really meaningful.
I love it. Well, I appreciate that. And you and Brian, can I put you on the spot?
And as you know, I'm newer as in Huddles. You and I have known each other for a couple of years now through professional circles. But the conversations like this, there's three things I've already texted some people on my team, say, hey, let's check out this, or let's talk to Kelly and John about this. And so, just every interaction I think is helpful. I'm also looking forward to some of the in-person interactions that you're planning down the road.
We're doing it. All right. Well, we appreciate that and you. And if you're a B2B marketing leader who wants to build a stronger peer network, gain recognition as a thought leader, and get your very own stress penguin, please join us at cmohuddles.com. Okay. I learned a lot in this call so far. I'm looking forward to learning more. I don't think you can have a conversation with marketers without talking about AEO, others are calling it GEO or AIO or EIEIO. I don't know. But we can talk about showing up in LLMs. And I know we're all this. And by the way, Brian, when you said you're just getting going, it's early days for everybody. It is really early days for everybody. And even the folks that are doing this all the time are still saying this is early days. But let's talk about, and Kelly, I know you probably spent a lot of time thinking about it, or people on your team, about AEO, and what has been your approach so far with that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I sort of think that AEO, GEO, and AIO, those are the three terms I've heard, are all a load of crap. I think honestly, I think they're consultants trying to convince you that you need some extra service that you didn't have. SEO is SEO. Like, if you optimize your content to be searched by Google, by Reddit, by Wikipedia, by all the different search platforms, it will show up in the GPTs the same way it shows up in Google search. It's all SEO. So to me, whatever you're doing, if you can double down on optimizing for SEO, now you're going to measure it differently, because you're not going to just look at Google search results anymore. You're not going to just look at Google click-through rates anymore. But you're going to look at, your GPT click-throughs and all that kind of stuff. You're going to look at a different set of measurement. But the actual act of optimizing the content, I don't think is any different. And so I have an SEO consultant. I have an SEO expert on my team. Both will say the same. Like, yeah, we're making sure it gets picked up on Wikipedia or Reddit because GPTs tend to source those. I think the big thing that you'll see is that if you are doing SEO well, there is a quality of content and a brand authority that influences the volume. So I do think the bigger brands are going to win GPT more than the startup brands, just by sheer volume and scale and brand authority. So that's a difference, I think. But in terms of the act on the back end of what you need to be doing, it shouldn't look any different. Interesting.
I love that perspective. I'm so glad you said that. I think I disagree. And I think there are a lot of experts that do. And it's the similarity, let's just say, argument's sake, 80% is similar, but there is 10% of the front end and the back end that are really, really different. Mm-hmm. And my sense is there's some coding that matters, with schema that matters, and where you show up, what the Reddits, the Wikipedias, and so forth. And those are not strategies that most brands have had. So you can't do that. And then there's just the difference between what a Q&A on your website might have looked like and what it needs to look like now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really, really significant. And I also do think there's going to get to the point where you're going to have a bot on your website that's going to respond to the bot asking Right. And there's some technical aspects to all of this. But anyway, this isn't about my opinion. This is let's hear John. And by the way, I also think there's tests that have been run. You're absolutely right. In terms of authority, 50% of the big brands are still showing up in LLMs just like they were in SEO.
Yeah.
But there's still small brands that weren't showing up in Google search that are showing up in LLMs for very specific reasons. And, John, I'm just curious if you have a perspective on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree that I think the 80-20 you mentioning there, Drew, I think is the right balance there, because I agree with Kelly that a lot of it is very similar. I think there are some differences, like SEO didn't really care about PR, but PR seems to be really big for AI picking up your stuff. You mentioned Wikipedia and Reddit and reviews and things like that seems to be important. And then there's the schema piece has been important from SEO perspective for a long time, but the having like FAQs and kind of like TLDRs available for the chatbot, which is hilarious to me. Like, this thing can read faster than any human, and yet it's the one that needs a TLDR now on all of our posts. But yeah, I mean, I think also following the right voices is really important. I follow Will Reynolds of Seer Interactive, absolutely amazing voice in this. He's doing a lot of experiments. They've been doing SEO a really long time, and he does a lot of experiments and gives all the data as to what they're seeing, which is really helpful. But yeah, I mean, it is a challenge. We are a smaller company, and but we show up in a lot of SEO and GEO terms, even over some of the bigger brands. Partially we've been doing a long time, and partially we're just a little bit more nimble in certain things, which is a worry of mine because eventually they will catch up. Right. They have just more budget than I will ever dream of.
and just for folks that are sort of new to this area, just one of the big differences is, so the way LLMs will give a different response every single time to exactly the same question. So you'd literally have to ask that question 100 times and see what percentage of times that you show up. And now, so we're actually looking at a share of voice metric per 24-word search.
Yeah.
And that's very different than SEO. Where it was
one word tracking it that will run those reports and things like that. But yeah, it is definitely a challenge to track. It's also very inconsistent to track. Whereas like SEO, there was all of these UTM parameters, made it very simple. So many times, all I get is ? source equal GPT, ChatGPT. I'm like, fantastic. That doesn't get stripped out super easily.
So anyway, interesting. Brian, you want to weigh in on this, or I have another question for you if you don't?
Let's move on. I'm not going to add anything.
Not an issue. So let's talk about, so we're moving on from AEO. Let's talk about how you're thinking about AI readiness, whether it's content, infrastructure, org structure, because there's still folks that are, at companies that are resistant to this. So it seems like marketing is leading the way. So what are you thinking about? And John, I'll hit you up on that. What does that idea of AI readiness mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, for us at our organization, I'm really thankful. My CEO is very AI focused. It is a really important thing to him. So like we get time to focus on this, and he tries to stay on the cutting edge of it. For a lot of what we do is myself, and the head of product and the CEO spend time brainstorming ways that we can use AI more across the organization, and how we can bring it to our account managers, the people actually doing the work, how we can train them better on it, because the marketing team is going to train on it anyway, because it feels like it's part of our everyday life. And but then how do you bring it to other people and make sure that the org is also leveling up, so that the marketing team or the product team or whoever it is that's championing it is not just so far out ahead and then not seeing that the rest of the company doesn't know how to properly prompt something, for instance.
Interesting. Brian, are you ready on that one?
I am. And I've got 3 thoughts on this. One is alignment. So it's great in John's case to have a CEO that's really driving it. Not all of our senior team is entirely comfortable with the new world. And so it's trying to get that alignment at every level in the organization, senior level throughout the organization. That's one. 2 is modeling. So I'm constantly thinking about how else can be applied, regardless of the conversation I'm in. So I was on a operations call a couple weeks ago, and there was a plant that was struggling with an issue and solved the issue, and then another plant working on a different issue. And so I talked to the ops leadership. I said, why don't we build an AI engine of best practices so that when the next time something related occurs, that you query the AI engine and our knowledge base comes back. And so that's in development. But not everyone is always thinking about the opportunities for AI yet. And so modeling that behavior is point number 2. And then the third is around experimentation, just trying things and seeing what works in our organization. And so we're, some of us, those that have really sort of embraced are doing these things, and ultimately we'll get there. We're just a little bit slower than some others.
It's funny when you talk about experimentation. There is a training aspect to this, because I remember a CMO in our community, the CEO went on and did a query about something hey, we're thinking about doing this. What should we do? And it just there was no context at all. And it said, well, don't raise your price. And so that was the answer. And obviously that was missing a lot of context and so forth. So I'm curious, Kelly, how are you tackling this issue of getting people to train so that they're using this differently than Google, that they're providing as much context and really giving enough information so that they can get better answers?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things on that. And one, I want to go back and make clarification on the last conversation when I was sort of being provocative about that. I think it's sort of the same thing. We're in an era right now where everything is AI. And so there is this little bit of yes, is GEO different than SEO? It is in some capacity, but everything right now we're calling it sort of AI powered or AI optimized SEO, right? Eventually that disclaimer will go away because it's all AI, right? Like software companies used to have software and SaaS. Now you just know that everything's SaaS, right? There's kind of this evolution that's happening. So when I think about SEO, obviously a lot of the techniques and the optimization from technical perspective, content perspective is going to change and evolve around the AI, around the GPTs versus just Google. But the concept is the same. You optimize your content, you optimize your channels, you optimize your brand authority, you optimize the sort of thought leadership component and the keywords or phrases. So I just wanted to clarify that. I was sort of making a drastic point, but I wanted to
which I appreciate. But I'm going to give an example that I think in the SEO world, you might have been not inclined to have a pricing sheet or a pricing comparative thing. If you don't have that, you will be penalized right now. Mm-hmm. Another example is having fully competitive charts on a level of detail that you never would have had, and making sure that data is actually readable from the LLMs. Again, you could not have that before because you wouldn't say, why would I want to do that and share that? But not having that puts you at a disadvantage because the LLM will define it for you.
Yeah. Well, and the challenge on that is I think people who are really, really good at SEO were doing that already, right? Pricing was the number one page we built on the website because we're that's what's going to optimize for Google. It's the number one question we have. And so I think hopefully companies weren't that far off because they were optimizing in that direction. But I definitely hear you that there's these nuances that are going to make you break through. We've fortunately been able to be very successful on both and made that switch just very easily from Google over to the GPTs, which I think is then tied to your question about how are we doing it. So we did a couple of things. One, we had an OKR this quarter that was tied, or in Q3, that was tied to AI prompt training. So we had somebody in our customer enablement team. We actually had one of our managers who wrote this book on AI prompt training put together these certifications for internal. And so we made that part of our OKRs is everybody needs to get trained on the optimized AI prompts. I've reimbursed for coursive memberships, right? They're $19.99 a month or whatever, and you can get trained on prompts for Grok or Claude or ChatGPT or whatever it is. So I think that's really important to answer your question about how do you make sure your organization is trained. I think the other thing that we're looking at for next year is, do we need I don't know what the title would be, but let's call them a go-to-market engineer, who's sitting and doing and making sure that they are building GPTs or agents that are talking to all the different things. For example, we know that the thing that makes our go-to-market motion the most successful is when all of our data and platforms are integrated together. And so that's an easy thing to do when you think about the data and then the reporting of it with these GPTs or agents connecting all of these together. And so having somebody who, every time there's a new piece of the tech stack, a new piece of technology, or anytime we're bringing in new reporting or new metrics or adding on new overhead with functions or whatever else, that we're able to automate that whole process together and make sure it all is talking together. That's a big role for us. And so I think that's going to be an investment that most companies need to make going forward, is having somebody dedicated to the engineering of their go-to-market from an AI perspective.
Yeah, I've been calling that role AI ops, for lack of a better word, but I do think that is going to be something. And some folks have been, it's like the engineer that was on their content team suddenly is like, hey, I can do this. And their job just got a lot more interesting and profound and important. And for the folks who don't have that, I think they're really going to miss an opportunity, because connecting all these things is not as simple as going into ChatGPT and say, how do I do it? Because we're working on a massive workflow project right now, and the guy who's running it is a engineer. There's no way we could have done that from prompts. But I want to go back to one thing. It's just kudos on the certification, and I think that's brilliant. In one that I put a big box on and would think. And by the way, you could probably create a certification program using ChatGPT to help you develop it, but to get to a place where every employee is it, because I know that this came up in a huddle where you had Jasper and you had one of your key writers was never using it, so that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right, which is a different issue. But I love that idea of certification, and I'm imagining that it's going to have to ramp up. Like today, certification is this, but tomorrow certification is going to be here, in getting that started. So that's really helpful. Brian, what that inspire on your thoughts?
Nothing new, related to that.
Okay. So do you find, and this is for all of you, that as marketing leaders that you need to sort of lead by example, and how are you doing that in terms of, because you got so much else to do. It's like, oh my God, I got to try this new tool. And so how are you managing that? And Brian, I'll hit you up on that one.
Sure. A couple things. One is finding other people in the organization that are as passionate about it as I am. It's not everyone, but finding other proponents, regardless of the function they're in. Clearly, there's some on my teams, but beyond my teams in IS or operations or even finance procurement. As I said before, modeling the behavior, modeling the thinking, and then also encouraging us as an organization to learn, like we're doing in this example today, talk to others, but we're bringing in a variety of consultants to talk to us about this, to build capabilities. So we didn't talk much about lead gen today, but we have a whole initiative where we're using AI to build sort of a best practice database that we can update over time for potential prospects and all that. So it's leveraging expertise from the outside as well.
John, we already talked about this. I mean, you are in there coding agents, but what does that, do you find that any of your peers are looking at you and going, wow, that's really cool. How do I do that?
Yeah, I mean, it comes up quite a bit in our leadership meetings, and like I said, it's nice that my CEO and my director of product are also in this quite a bit, and and one that we didn't even touch on is I won't call it vibe coding, I call it AI coding, but we do a lot of AI coding, trying to create new experiences and things like that for our users coming to the site or on the back end for people who are already using our site, like through our app. And my director of product and I were commenting the other day that, if you would have told us a year or two ago that we'd spend an appreciable amount of time just doing prompts to code things, it would have been crazy to hear that. But it's true. Like you become these like Swiss Army knives of different, using different use cases and learning different tools. And then, but I think one of the biggest things is figuring out the prioritization there, like that there are so many tools, there's all these different things you could do. But one of my favorite quotes is, we can do anything, but we can't do everything. So you have to choose what to focus on.
Before I let you go on that one topic of the vibe coding and so forth, is there one thing that you built that is like for the website, for the customer experience, or that your product guy built that you're sort of, it's like, that's cool?
We're very close to launching one that I'm very excited about that will allow a prospect to come to the site. And we have a lot of different service lines and a lot of different industries. They'll be able to come to the site and choose kind of like almost a choose your own adventure of different paths, and it'll ask specific questions. And then there's always it seems like you're struggling here. Let's have a call with our sales team type of thing. But it's going to streamline a lot of both the customer experience and the sales admin time, where they're not having to ask these questions later down the line.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Amazing. And I so appreciate the notion of there's infinite amount of things that you can do, but that is not the definition of strategy, is knowing what you say no to. And so that is great. And it feels like the right place to go is, what are your biggest challenges right now? And then how can AI help you solve them, as opposed to what can AI do, which is everything. So, all right, well, we're at the point now where it's final words of wisdom for CMOs when it comes to sort of adopting and disseminating AI across not just marketing, but the organization. And Brian, since you were last at the beginning, you get to be first here now.
Okay. Final words of wisdom. I think it's you, and someone said this earlier, Drew, it may have been you. We're just at the beginning of this. It's really, and I tell this to my kids. I've got 6 kids from 18 to 25. I said, embrace this, because, and I say it to all my employees as well. We're really in the very early stages of how this is going to transform everything, how we work, how we do everything, how we build our businesses and our companies. So that's my, just get comfortable to start somewhere if you haven't, and then keep growing and learning from others.
I love it. All right. John.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I look for ways that AI can help improve your skills. And I think that's one of the ways that I love using AI. So I will develop a strategy. I'll give it to AI with the context of our audience and our company. And then I'll ask it to poke holes in it and tell me why it won't work. It's one of my favorite ways to use it. And if you haven't tried that, please do it. Use it as a sparring partner. Let it be the thing that tells you that you're wrong about something, so you can defend that before you have to go present it to your board or your leadership team.
And I love that. And by the way, one of the things that a few CMOs are doing is building board persona GPTs and CEO persona GPTs so that they can then run those. So here it is. What do you think? All right, Kelly, final words of wisdom.
By the way, I'm still like doing the math in my head for Brian of 6 kids in 7 years. So I'm still like reeling from that for a second. So, so good for you, Brian, for being here. I think AI is it's a bottoms up and a top down and a focused effort. So I say that meaning, from a bottoms up perspective, I think there's a lot to be learned, right? We as individuals, we want to learn it ourselves. We also want to be in a company that we feel like fosters that place of innovation. So the bottoms up, what you can do, you can set goals for your team. If you can talk about it, you can start a Slack channel for the company, invite anybody in the company to come, where you just share things. I tested this platform. I tested this thing. This helped me with meeting scheduling. This helped me getting through my emails, whatever it happens to be. So do that so people can start kind of sharing their own individual ideas. I think as a company, as leaders, we have a responsibility to put a vocal kind of face on it, meaning we need to build OKRs related to AI adoption or usage or training or certification. as I talked about earlier. I think I hear often that people feel like if they work in a company where AI is not a priority, that they are getting behind in their talent skill set, and they are going to be looking for another company to work for. And so if a company wants to hang on to great talent, they need to show that they are investing in their people, and AI is a big way to do that. And then third one is focus. And, I think Brian mentioned earlier about lead generation being a big piece, right? There's so much work now being done on how do we build campaigns that are outcome optimized, meaning instead of like, I have $1 million, I'm just going to throw it out at all of these things and hope it works. Instead, what we're going to do is we want to use AI, build a campaign that says, I'm optimizing for this outcome with this persona based on this budget. Now go run it for me. And I think AI can do a ton of that. So if you can really focus the use cases where you can use it, then it's not as overwhelming. Like John said, you can really focus on, you can't do everything. So focus on the ones that are going to move the needle in the business.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you, Kelly, John, Brian. You're all great sports. Thank you, audience, for staying with us. Please join us in 2 weeks when we're essentially going to continue this conversation because there's so much to learn. We'll be talking about building the marketing team's AI acumen with James Stanton, Betsy Deitch, and Grant Johnson. Cue the music. CMO Huddles Studio is produced by Melissa Caffrey. Our production assistants are Laura Parkin and Ishar Cuevas. If you'd like to learn more about CMO Huddles, please visit cmohuddles.com. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, and until next time, keep on sharing, caring, and daring each other to greatness.